Okay. Hi, this is Baeders, a reporter at the Los Angeles newspaper group, and I just wrote a great big story about why so many black kids end up in foster care. It's a story that, because it's so complex and controversial, that it took me months to research and write. I came up with the idea while I was doing research on my own for foster care, because it's sort of my hobby, because I adopted a bunch of foster kids, and I currently have one foster son in addition to that, so I'm just naturally interested in the topic. Here's how I decided to tackle this story. Because I'm interested in foster care, like if there's like a soiree where they're going to talk about foster care with like potentates from the county, I'll show up and I just kind of want to hear what they have to say because of my interest in the topic. And when I was doing that, it seemed like I ran into a lot of black people, like social workers, youth who are in foster care. I never really met so many black people. And on a whim, I decided I'm just going to look up, I wonder how many people are black in LA County and how many are in foster care. What percent of black kids make up the foster care population. And the number blew my mind, because 8 to 9% of the kids in LA County are black, right around there, like 8.5%. But about 29% of the kids in foster care are black, and I thought the number was wrong. It was so stratospheric, that percent, the increase. So I talked to this friend I knew in the foster care system. She's like works for DCFS, and she told me the number was real and it was a big deal. And she said I'd probably find that there was system bias, meaning somehow there's an inherent problem, sort of like a remnant of racism or some sort of accidental mechanisms that would suck more black kids into foster care and keep them there longer. Because black kids stay in foster care about 50% longer than kids, Hispanic, Asian, or white kids. So I thought I would find literature on that. So I started combing through the literature, reading, and I saw all these anecdotal studies, but nothing that really showed system bias, and I kind of got weirded out by it. And then I found like this giant research paper that was like a big sum up research paper on all the data on why it's called disproportionality. That's what the topic is called, the number of black kids in foster care. And it tended to just sort of linger and bounce around the subject, and then finally it found that that maybe black kids were mistreated more, and that's why they're in foster care. And it wasn't like that the system was taking in too many black kids, it's that black kids had life harder. And then I made a few phone calls, and I realized, oh no, I had stepped into like this philosophical civil war that's been raging like behind the scenes in foster care that I had no idea existed. And I knew I wasn't going to finish the story like in a couple days or a week or probably even a month, and it was going to be a long haul. So I'll make this quick. There's 2 camps in foster care right now. Those who think the resources should be spent on the birth family to help them stabilize and keep their kids at home or get their kids back quickly and get them into a better situation. And those who think the resources instead, the other camp is the resources should go to the system to take care of the kid because their birth family already has so much drama, it's unlikely that you're going to reform that family. And the more sure thing is the kid. You can work on the kid and they can grow up more healthy. And it's sort of just a sad reality that the money is better spent on the kid in their opinion. Both sides have their own data that they cite all the time. The stabilize the family side generally says that like poverty is the main factor, and that you're just taking poor kids, they're actually not more at risk. And then this let's just stick to the kids side says, let's just be realistic. Black kids have higher rates of maltreatment according to all these big studies. So I was like, what do I do? I'm not an expert. I don't know. I'm not going to call either side wrong. I don't know. So I thought I could cut through this noise. I know what I'll do. I'll just look at how many black kids died. I mean, you can't fake that. You can't fudge that. It's like how many black kids are dead in LA County. And for the second time, I was completely blown away. Although they're only 8% of the population, remember, they made up like 25% of child deaths. And then I looked at this civil grand jury report that came out recently, and it said that those kids weren't dying in foster care, they were living in foster care, and then when they would go home, they would die. 90% of them died when they were with their birth families. And I was just dumbstruck. I didn't know what to think. So I kept digging. And I started finding the research, and there's this lady named Emily Putnam-Hornstein at USC, and she had actually tried to see if there was bias. She took all these kids and compared birth records with Child Protective Service records, and she found out there probably was not system bias. In fact, a black kid was less likely to go into foster care than a white kid if you factor in for risk factors like lack of a parent. But the cold reality of it is that black kids had more risk factors. I mean, they had less likely to have a dad, they were less likely to have money, they just had hard things in their life that made them more likely to go into foster care. So I thought I had it figured out. It's like, okay, the black kids just have it worse. It's not that the system is biased. But then like another big bomb dropped right in the middle of my research. A big report from the East Coast came out, like a think tank in the East Coast that does foster care stuff, that said LA County did a horrible job in the black neighborhoods. There's not even a foster care office in the black neighborhood. Like they have to get in their car and drive far away just to like meet their social worker. The other thing that was interesting was that they said the caseloads were extremely high in the black neighborhoods, and that the worker changeover was extremely the highest in the black neighborhoods, and the newest workers were in the black neighborhoods. And that sounds like bias to me. That sounds like one group is not being treated fairly compared to the other groups. And so is there bias? I don't know. Like, I just started to get confused. So then I kept looking, and I decided that the answer wasn't easy, and I just couldn't say for sure who was right or who was wrong. So I just decided just to tell the readers the data as clearly as I could, and I put everything I had. But I just didn't want to have a big bunch of graphs and numbers. It's like Ross Perot's campaign. I wanted to have something like real. Like I wanted the reader to be able to connect with these kids. So I started trying to meet people, and I heard of this lady named Cynthia Bradbury, a white lady who had adopted 2 black kids, and she was fired up when I talked to her about this topic. She was saying that she had a social worker flat out tell her white people shouldn't adopt black kids. She said that it seems like the social work agencies or the workers have, when I say workers, I mean everyone from the top dog to the line worker, they all have these philosophies about their ideas of race, but the kids, they don't know about race, and they just know they love their adult who takes care of them. And sometimes the kids get stuck in this sort of philosophical battle, and what's best for each individual kid, she sometimes feels like gets tainted by this like this behind the scenes philosophical war. Anyway, the kids were totally cute, and Sarah Ringowitz, our photographer, went out there and she totally captured just like daily life, like how much they loved each other and the challenges of raising kids and baking and just family life, you know. And I think she really showed that people can love each other, and I'm sure those kids will have racial issues as they get older when kids start being mean, and I think Cynthia Bradbury will be ready for that when it comes. But I don't know, it was really beautiful just to see people acting like a family. Anyway, I finished up the story with a lot of conflict in my own heart. The topic was real to me because of my personal life, and I didn't like what I found. You know, that the plain cold fact was that foster kids, black kids, die the most. Take even foster out of it, black kids in general are at risk compared to other kids of other races, and I don't think any decent person's like okay with that. I'm not. And these are just, I mean, after all, these are just little kids. They're just young boys and girls who just have dreams and want to grow up like everyone else. They didn't ask for this crap storm to come into their life and to be separated from their families, and they didn't ask for their family to be in such dire straits in the first place. Like whatever brought them into foster care, those are probably hard things they went through. And I guess the frustrating part of when I was all done is that nobody really knows what happens to foster kids now. Like we don't know, like the kids who get adopted, how do they do? The kids who get into guardianship, how do they do? The kids that go back with their families, how do they do? We don't know. We have a few studies here and there, but we haven't really tracked the big group of kids over the long haul ever. And Emily Putnam-Hornstein, that researcher I mentioned before, she's kind of getting there, but it's going to take her years and years to actually get to the point where she has enough data over enough years to find out what happens to all these different tracks of children. I guess there's probably part 2 to this eventually coming down the pike. It's going to be a while because I don't want to write what I don't know, and I put everything I know so far. And at this point, I don't think anybody really can say what works with helping these troubled children and troubled families, and that's another sad reality. I think the county does all these things, and they just do their best because we don't have the data yet, and that's sad because these kids' lives, as far as I can tell, are really hard. And they're filling up our morgues, they're filling up our prisons, not just black kids, just foster kids in general. And I think we've got to find a way as a society to decide whether we're comfortable with that or we want to be involved and think about what we're going to do about these 18,000 kids in LA County who are in foster care right now. The end.